Kia ora everyone, and welcome to the Unable Semen podcast, the podcast designed to take a light-hearted look at all things boating and fishing in New Zealand. My name's Jake Kerr, I'm your host, and joining me once again is my first mate, best mate, Christian Jensen. How are you, mate?
Oh man, bloody good. Woo, talk about the technical difficulties and challenges we have had this evening.
We've spent 40 minutes trying to get back online, haven't we?
I told I told my partner, I said, hey babe, I'm doing this little thing with Jake and it'll be an hour. And she says, oh, it'll be an hour 10. I said, well, yeah, probably an hour and a half. And it's looking like it's going to be a bit longer.
So you've only got about 20 minutes left now.
Yeah, so let's crack into this.
I just want to say, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, Christian, just a huge thank you to everyone that listened to our last podcast, and even more thank you to those people who followed us on Instagram at Unable Semen and gave us some feedback. It was really good, the feedback, really positive, as well as some constructive stuff as well, which we're going to try and include. We're obviously very new to this, and we definitely need to invest in some technology. I know my microphone last time wasn't that flash, but it's still not that flash, to be honest, but we will get there. Anyway, bro, enough admin. Tell me, we're level 1 now, level 1 alert level. Tell me, what have you done since we've been to alert level 1 that's boating and fishing related?
I moved house and I managed to hook my boat up and tow it to the new house.
Oh, well, that's pretty depressing for the listeners. So I'll jump in then. Well, bro, I have done something I haven't done for a long time, which is surf casting. Now, I know you used to do a lot of surf casting. Yeah, man. I went to just a place north of Thames there with a couple of guys from school. I flicked this big, long, stupid rod into the sea with a bit of pilly that was about 6 months old, and I thought, we are going to catch nothing.
Hold up. The last time we did surf casting, I ended up eating the bait.
You did end up eating the bait, yes. Good memory, yeah. Well, the fish certainly weren't going to eat it.
Oh, man, we caught jack nothing that day.
Yeah, well, we got a couple of gurnard, a snapper.
Actually.
In fact, 2 snapper. Yeah, I mean, nothing to write home about, but a good feed. It was a beautiful evening, and for the end of May, you can't complain.
Where was it again? Where'd you go?
Just north of Coromandel, a place called Te Puru, I think it is.
Oh, cool. Hey, well, mate, you just drive there, few mates, few beers, hopefully a sober driver, definitely a sober driver, and it sounds pretty cheap, good fun.
Well, I don't mean to brag, bro, but that was only one of the missions I've been on. I've also been back up to the Bay of Islands. I've taken the cover off the old Bayliner. It was an absolute state. Oh, the mold was everywhere. An alarming smell of petrol.
Oh yeah, that's right, because you got that tank that's a bit of a...
Pretty sure I warmed up the planet a couple of degrees when I fired it up. There was just a plume of smoke.
Yeah. What's your outboard again? A 1998
Johnson Ocean Runner 150. Great engine.
Which is a V6 two-stroke, 2 point something litres of pure awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's 2.7 litres of two-stroke awesome.
I don't think Greenpeace would have thought it was that awesome if they could have seen what I was doing. But got out there nonetheless and had a little dabble just on the ledger rigs. For those that are listening, I almost never use bait. I'm a huge fan of jigs and what have you. And I decided to use bait and ledger rigs. And do you know what? The problem with that sort of fishing is you just get nibble of every 6-inch snapper north of Wellington. And it reminded me of why jig fishing is so much better.
Mate, I love working metal, but I love chasing fish with metal, different type of fish to snapper. I love just vertical jigging for dirty big kingies.
Oh, like that trip out to what's that island out off Mana we went to that time?
Yeah, well, we went to the Hunter's Bank off Kapiti Coast, north of Wellington. And that was a big donkey, eh? What a day. We had a good day. And lucky someone else was out there because we ran out of electricity on the way back. Eating my fist right now going, oh, man. Chelsea, my partner, she was like, oh, have you checked the battery? Good enough fuel? Da, 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 da. I was like, yeah. She said, we really should have a Coast Guard membership. I'll get onto that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still getting around to that.
Yeah, well, we'll get there. Yeah, if you're listening, New Zealand Coast Guard, and you want to sign a couple of members up, you know, get
I'm
in
actually really
contact with
keen.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
lawyer's
yeah,
bill for the house wasn't as much as I thought it was, so I got to spare 100.
well, I have actually joined, and I totally recommend for all those listening. Now, bro, this month's topic. Now, as we said, we're going to try to do monthly episodes. Now, we apologise that this
Emphasis on the try.
yeah. Apologies, apologies to everyone that we are a little bit behind on this one. But as Christian mentioned, he moved house. Obviously, we've gone back to work now that we're at alert level 1, and a few things have popped up. But we have got a action-packed show today. We want to talk about boating post-COVID. Now, the economy, you only have to turn on the news for 10 seconds. The economy's in the toilet. Everyone's getting sick, and there's people marching all through America. So you'd think there wouldn't be much good news. But we're choosing to look at it from a different angle. We think people need to appreciate what they have in terms of boats and looking after what you have. So whilst new boat sales may suffer, and I certainly hope they don't, and in fact, I'll just jump in here. One thing I heard on the radio is that the government's looking at doing a GST holiday, which would be fantastic. Is one of these things to get the economy going again. They would do a GST holiday.
Off
15% off everything.
No,
sorry, not holiday. No, sorry, not holiday. Let me rephrase that. GST wiped for, like, you would buy
6 months, a year, or something.
Yeah. So you'd go out, buy a new car, buy a new boat, and have 15% off essentially. So it could be a really good time.
Almost sounds like a Briscoe sale,
bro. I mean, so I mean that is just one of the ideas. So we shouldn't push that too much. But what we do tend to see.
Auntie Cindy, I would really approve of that because I'd love a new 4-stroke Merc on the back of mine, or Yamaha. Yamaha, if you're out there and you want to give me a new outboard on a 20-inch shaft, by the way.
Yeah, we talking about the boat, I assume. Sorry.
Sorry. Sorry. We might have done this. Anyway,
but that would be really good, eh? But what we do see in these times is people put money into their boats. So they go, no, I'm not going to upgrade, and I'm going to put money into my boat trailer, my engine, and give it a refurb. And we're going to talk about that very shortly. But I do want to talk about a couple of new boats and a couple of topics before we get there. Bro, okay, if you're listening, get on the Instagram at Unable Semen and take a look at this. The Riviera 505 SUV, brand new model from Riviera. Oh my giddy aunt.
I'm going to get onto it. I'm going to get onto it right now.
Now, we talked about Dickie last time, and Dickie was our favourite boat. And one piece of feedback we got was that people didn't know what Dickie boats were, and I had 3 or 4 people actually say they looked it up and was like, oh my God, that is now my new favourite boat. So awesome. And Dickie, if you're listening, that's 4 potential customers. So, if you want my bank account details, or
what are you going to take, a 5% cut?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll take that GST. Yeah. Have a look at that Riviera 505, bro. What do you think? Tell me.
Well, first impressions. Sorry, now remember, new house. I'm having to hotspot from my phone, so they say my internet's connected, but I haven't got that funny little box that you need to connect. So just give me a second.
About the internet there.
Yeah.
Well, while you're looking, I'll fill in. This is the best looking SUV out on the market.
Now, why do you call it an SUV?
Because that's the design of it's called an SUV. Otherwise, it'd be a flybridge. Now, Riviera very well known for sports utility vehicles, what it's called in the car world. I honestly couldn't tell you what it means in the boating world. But anyway, I digress. This is such a good-looking. Oh.
Okay, yeah, I agree that it's good-looking, but have you ever heard of a good-looking SUV? Like, you think of the Bentley and you go, that Bentley thing, and then you think of the other SUVs like the Holden Captiva. Let's take my mum around driving. But they could have used a better name, like SUV. This is a sexual beast of the water. This is
maybe it stands for sexual undercarriage vehicle.
Yep, maybe.
I doubt it. And Riviera, if you're listening, if you want that name, you're welcome to it.
Yeah,
but
you're welcome to it.
If we stick with the boats for a minute, right?
Oh, it's
and you're
beautiful.
saying
Don't get me wrong. You know as much as anyone else here. I love a boarding platform. That one on the back, you step down into the water. It's got it. Beautiful.
Lovely indoor-outdoor flow. One little black mark for me, mate, is IPS drive. Oh, white seat. Okay, we'll come back to the white seats, but IPS drive. I've had someone from Riviera tell me that stands for instant pieces of shit. Now, they had 100% fail rate in New Zealand, apparently. Okay, this is just what someone told me off the record.
And so they're all IPS. You can only get an IPS. Oh, yeah.
I believe so on this model. Now, I do want to just preface that by saying that was early IPS. I'm sure, like any piece of technology, they had their issues, and I'm sure they're fine now. It was something to do with, I don't want to call it the wear-in, but it was something around that pod, because they're full 360-degree turning pods, right?
Oh, crazy! The technology that goes into them is pretty awesome.
Oh, it's incredible technology.
Well, if you tell us a bit, because you know a bit more about it than me, but what are the things you can do with these IPS things? Because it's not just a normal propeller that drives you forwards and you put it in reverse and it moves you backwards, with a rudder or whatever. It actually, there's two motors and they can work separately to move the boat sideways, with a joystick, and dock sideways and backwards and everything.
Yeah, it's exactly that. They make, it was just a 50-foot boat, and they go up to about 70 foot, I believe. In fact, cruise ships have them. So
wow.
it's a technology that's been used in all sorts of boating areas, and it makes the maneuverability. God, that was hard to get out. The maneuverability.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
He's not an English teacher.
No, I'm not an English teacher. No.
You're a PE teacher, clearly.
PE teacher. So and it's well past my bedtime, so I'm struggling. But I really like this boat. Good layout. And what I like about this boat, bro, is that I think it's a boat that will sell well in New Zealand.
Okay. In all fairness, relative to what? It looks like it's worth $1 million.
Oh, it's worth it's worth a little bit more than that, actually. Packages from 2.075. So
you get a base model.
It's from $2 million.
Wow.
Yeah, but don't think of it as a boat. Think of this as an apartment. Think of this as a batch.
Yep.
And it has everything a batch would have.
No, you don't. You're preaching to the choir here.
And I don't want to labour away too much because we've got plenty of more news to talk about. But I think that is a really cool boat. Well done, Riviera. Congratulations on that model. And I think it's a good size, and $2 million, it's a bargain. Not 15% off that when Cindy gives us a tax back, and I'll have 2. Thank you very much.
So you're going to have basically 300,000 off it.
Yeah.
Is that right? 15%. Yeah, it is. That's quite a bit.
It is.
This is actually not good because I'm an engineer. You're not a maths teacher, and we both suck at this. But anyway, you make a saving.
You make some money. Now, the other piece of news I want to talk about, and I think this is a fascinating review in the latest boating magazine, and it's the new Extreme 915.
This is interesting.
915. Now, in our last podcast, listeners will remember, I was a little bit critical of Extreme, and
yes, you are.
Some of my criticisms still stand. I think the ride, certainly in the ones I've been in, and I must admit, I don't have a well-documented experience, but I have been in a couple, and I can tell you they bang and crash, and it's because they have that big, full-bodied bow, which gives them heaps of room inside, but it just, and people are going to be yelling at their radios going, I've been in them and they're fine, but I don't know, maybe I had a bad one.
Well, you got to remember, people out there, you got to remember, Jake is comparing these Extremes to a very well proven seaboat known as a 1989 Bayliner Capri. Is that right? Capri?
Yeah, thank you for taking away all my credibility in the maritime world. But back to this review. What interests me about this is that in this new size, they've released, it's a 915, and it's a 9 meters. They've released your standard hardtop, the Game King, and the walk around, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't a new concept. They've done walk arounds before. The interesting thing about this article is the engine comparison. On the hardtop, they've got a 425 V8 Yamaha.
Oh,
single. I know. Single. Well, hold that in, mate, because on the other boat, they've got twin 200 4 cylinders.
So the Yemi, the ultralight
Yemi. The ultralight Yemi. So obviously 400 horsepower there. Now, I know this is an area you love to
400.
Talk about.
Yeah.
Single versus twin. Tell me your pros and cons, mate. Go.
Oh man, okay, so it's a toughie because I've been a single man all my life because I can't afford two. Basically.
You're talking about engines or
engines? Sorry,
you
engines.
Don't even bring your dating life into this, mate. But
Okay. But you know as much as I know that Australians love them and South Africans love them. And if we're talking about who we hang out with most when we go overseas, Aussies and the Bockies.
Well, South Africans have to have them by law to go a certain distance offshore, I believe.
Interesting, eh? Yeah, and Aussies love them and they swear by them. They say, "Oh, maneuverability and all that crap, blah blah blah." I'm sort of tempted because again, you can do cool things because you can control the two individual motors in the back separately. You can maneuver the boat in a way that you can't with a single motor.
Yeah.
So in a crosswind or something, you can control it and swing it into a dock if you're docking, or on and off your boat ramp, on and off your trailer really, really, really well. But another cool feature that a lot of the modern ones are doing is that eye hold, or basically a GPS spot hold feature. So instead of having a single motor and then having a Minn Kota or some electric motor on the front that holds you over your deep pinnacle when you're fishing for half hooker in 200 meters of water or jigging or whatever, you can use the motors with a GPS unit to automatically hold you in a spot and also orientate the boat in a certain way. And some of them have remotes and everything, so they're pretty cool. And you couldn't do that with a single motor. But I haven't had a read through this review. What does it say about them?
Well, as you said, I'm not a maths teacher, but I'm going to throw some numbers at you, okay? And this, get a load of this because it's very interesting reading, I believe. The 425 V8, okay? 450 kilos.
450. Yep. So one motor, 450 kilos.
Yep. Versus the two 200s at 220 kilos each.
So basically the same. 240 kilos versus 250.
Yep. At 3,700 RPM, the single engine's using 45 litres per hour. Same speed, same RPM, 50 litres an hour for the twins.
So 5 litres more per hour for the twins. Yep.
Yeah. Now, I also did some research, uncharacteristically of me, and looked up a boat called Midnight Express, an older boat. It's also a 950 Game King, fitted with a TDI Volkswagen. So that's the 260 horsepower V6, the same engine that's found in many Volkswagens and Audi cars, and has obviously been marinized.
And it's diesel or petrol?
Diesel.
Cool.
Okay. It does 54 litres an hour at 38 knots. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Scrub that. It does 50. Okay. I'll start again. The TDI Volkswagen diesel. Okay. 38 knots.
Yeah.
54 litres an hour. Okay.
So we're comparing 54
an outboard at the same speed is 61 litres an hour. 54 versus 61.
Ballpark the same.
So forget single versus twin outboard. Why would you even go outboard at all when a diesel can produce those sorts of numbers?
Because they're like $20,000 more.
Yeah. Yep. Fair enough. But what scenario would you be using a diesel over an outboard?
If I was doing big long trips, taking my lovely partner and I was taking on a beautiful overnight mission out to do some serious hard hooker fishing or jigging or something, but she probably wouldn't want to borrow that, so we'd probably go to the island, Kapiti, or if we're up in the Bay of Islands or Coromandel, cruise around Urapuka and all that sort of stuff and having tea and motoring around.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to throw a third scenario, in fact, a fourth scenario at you then.
Oh my gosh, I can't take this. There's so many.
A boat called X-Shore. Now, again, listeners, if you want to have a look at this boat, this is incredible. At Unable Semen.
Remember the feedback last time was when you put all these boats.
You will put them on. Okay, 100% we'll put them on. At Unable Semen on Instagram.
Boom.
To X-Shore. A fully electric boat. Now, have a look at that, bro. I sent you the link. That is amazing.
Okay, let's jump into this thing. Okay, yes. It looks interesting.
Interesting. It looks amazing.
It is very Scandinavian. It's wooden. It's very, very wooden. It's
100% electric. So just to listen,
really?
it's a center console, 100% electric. So it's
even got wooden seats.
Boat. Yeah.
It's even got wooden. It's got these. It looks like the guy's been to IKEA to build this.
Well, the IKEA is a good thing. It has got that look about it.
And what's this little pole in the front? It's got a little like a not a mermaid, but a snake hanging off the front on a stick.
Oh, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's something for the charger. But coming back to, I think this makes sense. I don't think electric cars make sense. Because if I have to drive to Christchurch, okay, I have to stop, for 45-minute charge stations. And I know they're getting better, and I know you can do the quick charges.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Carry on. Yeah.
A boat makes sense because you use your boat for a day boat. I'm talking about here. A 6-meter trailer boat going out for the day. You charge it up the night before. You've got I don't know, 5 or 6 hours of battery run time. You go out to your picnic, you do some fishing, you have a water ski, you come back, you charge it back in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they got weird names like Earlord or Elord.
Oh, look, and
LX.
Yeah, this is an interesting
and electrics. They're fucking like. How do you describe these? IKEA mushed with plywood, tan. But 149,000. Now that's a euro, is it?
I believe so. Yeah.
This is for the base model. 149. So 150,000 euros for a 6-meter boat, 5.8 meters. I'm going to go discover and buy.
It's a lot of petrol. It's a lot of petrol to make it even, doesn't it?
Charge 6 hours. Top speed 40 knots. 17 nautical mile range. Yeah, it's actually kind of respectable, isn't it?
So, tell me the problem here. I can't see one.
What? Charge 6? Does that mean it charges in 6 hours, or does that mean it? Well, that's pretty cool, eh?
I read that as it lasted 6 hours, but you could be wrong.
Well, I'm going to read that too. Yeah.
And you could take battery packs out with you, I assume, and if you want to charge it while you're anchored somewhere, and then continue on if you wanted to go further. But I think for most
in terms of nerdiness, it's got a 225 kilowatt engine, which is massive. It's got 2 60-watt-hour water-cooled lithium-ion batteries, so 120 kilowatt hours. So, okay, so it's got massive batteries. I imagine they'd last a while. It's even got a bow thruster, man. It's got a bow thruster on an 8-meter boat. How wicked is that?
Right.
The batteries are down low. This is kind of cool. Yeah.
If I won lotto, I would buy one of these. Just to have a go with the technology. I think it makes sense. I think boating.
You're right too. And it lasts 6 hours. Yeah.
6 hours. Cool. Okay, it does. Sweet. I thought I'd read that right. Now, for most day boaters in New Zealand, that's going to work, isn't it? You go out for a morning's fishing, you go out for a wakeboard, you go somewhere and drop the anchor and have a picnic or something. And if you could put solar on it that it charges, man, I think this is the future. I mean, we're talking about single versus twin outboards and diesel and look, there is a lot of water to go under the bridge before we're moving to electric boats. But if that's the future, I am excited about it. We're talking about life after COVID and innovation. Well, there it is.
Talking about life after COVID, one thing I really enjoyed, because we used to live in Wadestown, renting up the sort of close to the motorway, it was quiet. There were no cars on the motorway. the ocean was calm and quiet. We even had dolphins in the harbour. And they're saying that some of the reasons why we had dolphins in the harbour because there was no boat noise. So if we had electric motors, there'd be way less boat noise. Sure, there'll be the sound, the propellers spinning, but there'd be no exhaust sound, which is massive. That's real cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's the future. Now, I also want to talk about another thing in the future. Now, I listened to a podcast called Seen Through Glass. It talks about cars, and really good podcast. I fully recommend it for our listeners. It's Seen Through Glass, if you didn't catch that the first time. And they spoke about where the car industry is going. And Audi are changing the way they sell cars. Instead of, so you go and buy an RS6, for example, and you can spec it up with all these extra things, extra sound system, extra, heating, heated seats, heated whatever. What they're thinking of doing instead is a subscription model. So all the cars will be built to a similar spec, built fully spec'd, okay? And then you subscribe by a monthly payment or yearly payment or whatever to get features unlocked. So you want sat nav, you pay $10 a year or whatever, and that's unlocked. That feature's unlocked. Heated seats, that feature's unlocked.
So hold up. So I can, if in summer, I don't have to pay to have my heated seats.
Potentially not. No.
That's quite cool.
I don't. Yeah.
Like user pay sort of thing. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. It's just it's their their direction for their business, and it's something they're thinking of doing. So instead of having all these trim levels, you have a car and you pay for what you want, similar to like you pay for Spotify or anything else. And it got me thinking, how could that apply in the boating world? And my answer to that is outboards. No one has $30, $40, $50, even more $1,000 for an outboard. I certainly don't. Maybe some people do, and if they are, well, good on them. What if you could
tell us what they're doing so we can learn?
What if you could pay a subscription fee, $1,000, $1,500 a year? You got an outboard similar to like you'd lease a car or something, and those outboards or outboards are on your boat. Servicing's covered and everything, and every 5 years they rotate them out, and you pay your money. And I don't know what the pricing would be. Maybe it's a bit more expensive.
Well, the cool thing is you get modern motors, so better for environment. Yeah, good thing for the environment. And imagine that with electric motors, because all of a sudden there'd be a bigger turnover of motors, and would be surely sooner there'll be electric motors on the market, and there'll be electric motors shortly in the second-hand market. It'll all trickles down. That's real cool.
Yeah,
real cool.
So that, I just thought that was an interesting way where the automotive industry is going, and it'd be really cool if the marine industry could follow suit in some ways. And you could do the same with electronics or anything. You could even do the same with the whole boat in some cases. Although I think boats are more personal than cars. You and I are both car people as well, and we love to personalize them. But a boat is like next level, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think you're right. So back in, do you remember Pimp My Ride and all that, where people were personalizing their car? We're definitely moving away from that. Yeah, we're we're not putting a spa pool and a 30-inch TV in the headrest of the car anymore. It's just the means. It's just like we just look at the car and go, it's a way to get from A to B. And I shouldn't be saying this because I love cars.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's happening with cars these days. Boats, though, you'd be hard pushed to say, oh, it's just a boat. It's just getting me from A to B, because it must be a time.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. Now, moving on, bro, we've sort of spoken about the future and there's some cool new products out there. But we wanted to talk about appreciating what you have and looking after what you've already got.
Oh, no.
Now, both of us have done up boats.
Yes.
And
many times. Oh, what are the things we've learned? Ooh.
Well, bro, tell the listeners a little bit about your experience doing it.
Do you mean Radicat?
Yeah, I think. Well, you've had a couple of. So run us through very quickly your boating history and what you've done.
Oh man. So Okay, yep. So I purchased I used to be a sailor, so I had a little sailing dinghy, and got a little phase two, which is like a two-man laser. Has a mast and a mainsail and a jib, and you take you and your mate out and go for a sail. So did that one, stripped it back and did it up, painted it, you do, and then moved on to the bigger, faster one, a javelin with a big prod, and you're hanging off the side, connected to the mast by a wire. That was pretty wicked, and I was forever fixing that and stripped that back and sand it and repaint it in cool new colours, and then you'd race it for a weekend and hit another boat and fix it and da-da-da. So, and then shortly got out of sailing, and then you'll probably remember Steve.
Of course, I remember Steve. Who could forget Steve? To fellow listeners, and Steve was a bright yellow.
Bright yellow.
What, 4 metre de Havilland? We'll put a picture up at Unable Semen. Check it out.
Yeah, we will. Steve had a personality.
And what was the lettering on the side? It was insulation tape, wasn't it?
It was like insulation tape, yeah, like tape, like sellotape to make the name.
So that was your first sort of proper boat.
There was a cool.
Yeah,
the wind. I figured about that. So yeah, Steve was my first power boat, 20 horsepower Honda. We did like some wicked trips on that thing, eh?
Yeah.
We caught some good fish too.
Tell the listeners about your painting experience and why you should let the paint cure.
Oh yes, I just spent all this time stripping the boat back, putting on this nasty undercoat that you shouldn't put on privately in the garage. You definitely need ventilation for that, and then finally put on 3 coats of a beautiful high gloss enamel that I got. It's a marine based one, and I got it from Alltex Paints, and I left it to dry for about 3 days, but it was a bit damp in those 3 days, like the weather was a bit damp, so I don't think it set. On my first outing, we went over the bar, and the whole bottom, a sheet of yellow paint just stripped off the bottom of the boat, and just was, I looked behind me and I was like, tits.
Oh, your hard work gone like a banana skin.
I was devastated, like far out. I'm trying not to swear right now because I can still look back and go, I know how I felt about that. Yeah.
And so moving on to Radicat, which was your next boat, you had a lot of fun in Steve, but being only 4 meters, he had to go, so you could move on to bigger and better things.
Yeah,
Tell us about Radicat.
Chelsea said to me, Chelsea said actually, going back in Steve, and Steve was a boat that you wore your snorkel and your mask when you came back in rough weather because you got soaked.
And so there was a bucket incident too where Christian didn't have any seats. So I sat on an upturned bucket in a pair of those satin boxes that were very popular at the time.
You had shorts, and let's just clarify, you had shorts and the satin boxes.
Yeah, but quite thin. Anyway, we came off a wave and my weight cracked the bucket and split it. But then as we came back up, the split in the bucket closed. Unfortunately, some of my testicle was dangling in that particular gap. And I'm still not sure if I can have children as a result of that particular incident. So
I do remember
Steve had to go after that.
Yeah, man. So I do not recommend to anyone buy a boat unseen, and I definitely do not recommend to anyone buy a boat unseen and get your mate or this guy that I'm talking to right now to check it out. Because what happened, Jake?
Christian said to me, "Go check out this boat in Auckland," and I mean, you put me. You go.
In all fairness, I said, bro, I'm not going to hold you against it. I just need you to run your very careful, well-educated eye over this boat, and does it look like a good deal? Okay, so let's put it in perspective. It was a 6-meter boat, huge space, a Yamaha 140, 2-stroke on the back. It was 1992 one or 91 or something, in pretty good nick, and they only wanted $5,000 for it on a trailer, eh?
With 140 on the back, yeah. And it had just been done up. It had just been done up.
Yeah,
that was the amazing thing.
They needed carpet, but otherwise it was good.
So I went along, and I obviously remembered the testicle incident and wanted to pay him back and go and buy it. No, look, I as I said, it had just been done up by this guy, and I thought, well, all the hard work's done. The engine had just had a service. Trailer looked right. I said, mate, go ahead. go ahead.
Yeah, like the trailer did look good, eh? Everything looked mint.
And so maiden voyage, middle of June, decided to go to D'Urville Island for a...
Well, hold up, let's go back a step. How awesome was your girlfriend when you said, "Hey, babe," because you'd not only gone from Hamilton up to Auckland, checked this out for me, and then did you take it on the spot then?
I did.
Did you go?
Yeah. No.
Took it on the spot. Okay, so we transferred the money. You brought it back to Hamilton. You stored it for me because at this stage I was in Christchurch studying, just finishing my degree. How many people are finishing their degree by a boat?
Well, I mean,
Anyway, nutters like us.
Good old course-related costs.
Yeah. And then that's how mad keen we are, right? and then you said to Karina, you're like, "Hey, I want to take you on a date. I want to take you on a date to Wellington." Little did she know you had hooked on this boat and you'd towed it all the way from Hamilton to Wellington to put on the steering wheel. What a good mate.
I did.
What a good mate.
Anyway, she got a few things out of it.
Yeah, what? And then you turned around and went back.
Yeah. I got a night in a cheap hotel out of it. That's what she got.
I hope I paid for that because what a legend.
But anyway, sorry, you go, mate. Tell us about the maiden voyage and...
Oh, yeah, well, I said to the guy on the phone, the guy bought it off, I said, we're talking about what are you going to do with it now? And I said, I'm going to take it on a fishing trip. He goes, where? I said, we're going to go to D'Urville Island. He goes, oh, that's a bit big for its first trip, isn't it?
In
Should have
June.
taken that. In June, winter, yeah. Should have taken that as the warning, eh? Mm-hmm. He wasn't confident in the boat, and we were overly confident as the new owner.
And neither were we that confident when we started coming back from D'Urville Island. So we had a great day fishing out, and it was a good...
Even before that, bro, do you remember how the trailer came off the back of the truck?
Oh, Jesus, that's right. Yeah.
The coupling came off. Yeah, so the trailer sucked.
Boat damn near overtook us on the highway.
That's no good. Oh, that was scary.
Then we were fishing in D'Urville Island. We came back, and we were driving along. I can't remember who was driving, but we were looking back, watching the floor flex independently of the rest of the boat. The boat would hit a wave, and the floor would sort of contort in different ways.
Oh, yeah.
And we realised then that maybe this guy doing up the boat possibly didn't know what he was doing.
Oh, yeah. So then we got it home, eh? It's a very, very interesting trip home, a long trip home from Nelson to Christchurch.
Yeah.
And then, man, that's a podcast in its own right, eh? That mission.
Yeah.
That was a good.
We'll say that mission for another time. But tell listeners what happened. You chopped the sight holes in.
So basically, I cut some holes in the floor, and I couldn't see anything wrong. So I got a router, and I just whipped the whole floor out. And it had no strength in it. Had no stringers. Like framing under the boat. It just was missing everything. This boat.
That's why it was $5,000. We started to realise.
Yeah, and that's where it dawned on me like how big this mission was going to be. It was going to be a big renovation mission. Do I just sell it and just cut my losses, or do I sink some cash into it and do it right? And I chose to the new owner of the boat because I've since sold it. I did it right, didn't I, bro? You've seen the photos.
You did. You did a bloody good job, including taking the 140 off, which decided to stop going into reverse, and put a 225 on, which someone obviously. I think the guy needed to get rid of it and gave you a deal on it.
Mate, and what did that do? Like nearly 100k an hour in water after that, eh?
Honestly, it was like falling off a cliff. It was moved.
Like...
Yeah.
Oh, but brilliant! It was brilliant.
So I guess bringing it back to our listeners, there are some cheap boats out there, and there are some good deals out there too. And $5,000 for that boat, it still was a lot of boat. However,
and like what did I spend on? I don't know. Like I tell Chelsea it cost me $3,000 to do up. It probably cost me $10,000 to do up.
Yeah. Like
so $5,000 for the boat, $10,000 because that included like all the epoxies and the timber and the carpet. And then the motor, because that cost me $3,500. So it's about just under $10,000 to do up. But then I had a boat that was, at $15,000. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Like a lot of boat, eh?
And you learnt a lot along the way. I mean, you were doing it on a carport, not even a carport, like a little half garage thing in Christchurch in the middle of winter, working, endless hours. So.
Oh man, I remember I'd finish work, I'd race home, and then I'd just crack into it till about 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And I did that every night for like 6 months.
But you got a mean boat out of it. And I guess if we bring that back, and you do want to get into boating or you want to get a bigger boat, that was a big boat at 6 meters.
Massive.
So if you're prepared to buy something that needs a little bit of work, I mean, that was a pretty major drive.
That was major. And also I had a really stupidly tight time frame of trying to get it going. I wanted to get going again for the next summer.
Yeah.
If I was to do it again, I'd just spread it out over 2 years or a year and a half or something, or a year even.
Yeah.
But what about the cool things we learned though along the way?
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't told my story yet. So as Christian continuously reminds us, I've got a Bayliner 1988, which I actually inherited. Yeah, 19.
You have to put up the photo of you when you were like 2 years old in it, and then you now. That's a cool photo.
What I was about to say. So I turned 30 the other day, and Mum put up a really cool photo of me as a baby in that boat because they got it when it was a year old. So I've spent my whole childhood in that boat, and I fell in love with boats, being in that boat and the experiences I had. So when it was time for me to take it on, I mean, my dad, Christian, how would you sum up his maintenance schedule and looking after things?
Well, you buy it, and then you use it, and then you pass it on to your son. And that's after 20 years of use.
Yeah. Flog the shit out of it. Never get it serviced. And then
drop it off the trailer a few times.
Yeah. And then you wonder why it's buggered and give it to someone else. So anyway, so that's essentially what I inherited. I had an old Force engine, which was a 125 Force, which is a budget Mercury. It's a Chrysler engine. And
it was shit.
I think the engine mounts were made out of, those drinks, those Alka-Seltzer drinks, or you put the tablet in and it just fizzes away until it's nothing? Like a Barocca or something?
What, even worse? I was going to say, it wasn't made of that. You know how you get those K-bars and you leave them in the sun?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, that was what my engine mounts were made out of. And I mean, the last time I took it out, I had a light fire on board. Anyway, got it repowered. The guy said he didn't even undo the engine bolt. He just gave it a shake and the whole thing fell off. It was one slightly medium-sized wave away from that he'd fallen off.
And the number of times we went boating, and I'd say, Jake, don't turn the motor off, and you'd turn it off, and we would have to drift home.
Yeah, when we got towed numerous times. I think it got towed more behind a boat than it did on the trailer, actually. Anyway, so I was working for Tristram at the time, Tristram Boats, and I was very lucky. Unlike Christian, I wasn't working in a carport. I was working in a state-of-the-art factory. So my mate Tim, and we must get on the podcast one day. He's a bloody good guy. He was the brains, and I was the brawn. And
you weren't even the brawn.
I wasn't even the brawn. I was just a sad, pathetic owner, hoping that at the end of it there would be something that was floated. And we took to it with a grinder and chopped everything out. The floor was toast. The expanding foam stuff, all the buoyancy was wet.
Yeah,
so
knock that out.
In fact, it was adding weight instead of providing buoyancy. That went out. Just totally redid it and put a whole lot of strength. The other thing with those Bayliners is they're what's called a shoebox joint. So you have the hull and the deck comes down alongside, like a top of a shoebox, like a lid of a shoebox. And it was pot riveted together. Now, of course, what happens to aluminium pot rivets over 20 years, bro? Can you fill the listeners in on that?
You get that great analogy you were saying before about you put your Barocca in a cup.
Yeah, they crap out. So the deck and hull were independent of each other.
And you were wondering why, when you'd motor along, why you're getting wet, Dave?
There was water coming. I could never figure out where the leak was. Well, anyway, it was because the thing was falling apart. So anyway, fiberglassed it all together, recarpeted it, new wiring, and I have a boat that I'm really proud of today, and still needs work. It's a never-ending project. But I guess if I had some feedback for the listeners, it's a couple of things. It's
advice.
Of advice is a better word. Is know what your strengths are and know what you're willing to spend. So, for example, I am hopeless at electrics, so I managed to buy a pre-made loom. Luckily, got
I call you bluff there. you called me up and you said, bro, can you come for a wakeboard mission with me? We've just got to plug in a few things. And I said, yes. And I turned up and you made me wire up your battery and your sound system. So there's nothing pre-made there except you just preempted me turning up.
Okay, that bit wasn't pre-made, but the actual loom itself was. I mean, that thing is just spaghetti junction of wires, right? So I wasn't prepared to do that. So I paid the money, whatever it was, and put it in. I was prepared to fiberglass.
Yep.
You know, so that would be my advice to listeners. What are you good at? What can you sort of get your mates to do? who can you suck in? And in terms of buying something that you want to do up, what are the bones of the boat? Are the bones good? Is the trailer good? And if the trailer isn't good, what is it going to take to get it up to spec? And also, of course, is the outboard or the propulsion unit, whatever it is.
Well, because there's three parts to the boat, eh? The trailer, because you got to tow it, the actual boat, and then the thing that pushes along, which is the motor.
Yeah.
Ideally, you want all three to be good, but probably what, 2 out of 3?
Well, if you're buying an old second-hand thing to do it, at least 2 or 3 of those things are going to be toast.
Yeah.
So decide what you can do and decide what you're prepared to go into. Now, and a very interesting point is that there's Chinese-made boat trailers now, which are very cheap. Now, a little birdie told me that some of the new Chinese trailers are better than the New Zealand ones because they don't have the environmental things. So they just
we shouldn't really plug this as a good thing, but okay. So you're saying
I'm just telling and I'm just passing. The listeners can make of this what they will. In New Zealand, we make with the trailers, the galls process. It's quite a nasty process, and obviously,
it's funky shit that you don't want to sleep next to at night.
You don't, and they've cleaned that industry up now, and it's so it's
to New Zealand's credit,
less harmless, less harmful on the environment. In China, as we all know, no such rules exist. No. So this little birdie told me that those new Chinese trailers are way better than the New Zealand equivalent, and they're cheap.
So let's just share it. The build quality may not be as good, but they won't rust because the galv is amazing.
Well, I would argue the build quality on some of them is not bad either. It's pretty good. But anyway, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, we better not. Yeah,
the other thing is engines. I mean, engines, that's where it gets tricky. You can find some pretty good second-hand two-bangers round, but they are getting rarer, eh? I mean,
yeah, man. I was lucky. Well, lucky and unlucky. I wanted another 140, and it was like I couldn't find one for less than $8,000. You know, I was targeting $4,000, and this 225 popped up, and I was like, for $3,000, I was like, no brainer. More horsepower is always good, eh?
Yeah, that's a big yes for me.
Yeah, and it didn't weigh that much more. It was like 40 kilos extra on the back of the boat. So, judging by my very well educated calculation, I said, let's do it.
Yeah, and it worked. So,
$3,000 for a new motor, boom. Well, new second hand.
Yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, away we go.
So yep, it is doable, and that and if
we've both done it,
if we've both done it, and we're not experts. I mean, as mentioned earlier, I'm a PE teacher, Christian's an engineer, so at least he thinks about things. I just sort of dive into it and hope hell and
hope for the best,
and have fantastic friends that I can call upon, and luckily it sort of landed on my feet. So, bro, to sum up, sort of, I suppose, because one of our pieces of feedback was to keep our podcast succinct. So we're trying to do that, although it's so hard because there's so many good topics I want to talk about for hours.
Oh, I know. When I talk to you, I go, man, do you remember that mission?
Yeah, you remember this? Like a couple of old women. I do want to just touch a couple of things with our listeners. Once again, I just want to plug that the Instagram at Unable Semen. Everything we've talked about today will be
including the photos,
including
your photos of you with your boat.
Yeah, and my
2 years old.
2 years old in my undies. We also want to do a little competition. Okay.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, we do want to do a competition. I want people to contact us via the chat on at Unable Semen and tell me
Instagram.
The ultimate boat you would go around New Zealand in. Now, Christian and I have talked about this, and we are going to do a podcast on this at some point.
Yes.
I must recommend a YouTube channel. Just type in boating around the UK, and these two guys go in this 4-meter blow-up boat. Fascinating story, so cool. and they go all around the UK in this little boat.
I'm
And
just
it got me
shaking my
thinking,
head.
what could we do a boat in?
What
could we do with
mission?
it? Yeah.
What boat would we do this mission in? I'm just
Yeah.
going, holy heck.
Well, we'll hold our
A cruise
answers.
liner?
Yeah, the Queen Mary too.
Yeah.
We'll hold our answer.
Plane.
We'll have a think, and we will talk about this in a future episode.
Yeah.
But please get in contact. Send it through your best suggestion for what you would take around. And yeah, you can say 70-foot Riviera. You're not going to win the competition. Say that. No. What's your best little trailer boat? What's your quirky little number that you would go around New Zealand in? Must be power driven. Okay, obviously a yacht is cheap.
We don't want no sailboats, and we don't want any kayaks.
Yeah, no kayaks. Yeah. So into that, and I will think of a prize to give you.
Cool, because we've got heaps of funding, eh?
A boating magazine from earlier this year.
hey, but before we wrap up, we've got to add the thing, which is the dog of the day.
The dog of the
month, the dog of the podcast.
Okay, bro, give us a look.
Jake, what have I got for you?
Your turn this week. Send it through. What have we got here?
Okay, so now I sent it to you earlier. Open it up.
I've got it. Here we go.
Yeah, I sent a messenger.
Gideon, what the hell is that?
Hey, what do you think? What do you think?
Jesus.
Describe it to the listeners, please.
Think? Okay, so it's a jet ski. Well, it started out life as a jet ski.
And it's a pretty modern jet ski hull, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a jet ski aficionado, but Jesus, it is. So it's a Yamaha, I don't know, mid-2000s jet ski, and obviously the engine's cracked out because it's
got no engine in it, eh?
He's fitted a Mercury 9.9 on it to an outboard bracket on the back.
So he's got a like an outboard auxiliary bracket and bolted that to the back of the jet ski, and then whacked a Mercury 9.9 horsepower. Now these things normally have like 250 horsepower, eh?
It's a 9.9. Why's he done that?
I don't know, but isn't it brilliant? It's pretty cheap, man.
No, it's not brilliant. It's not brilliant. It is horrific.
$1,650, and it's got a wharf in the Rego, and
don't
it's a
buy
two-seater.
that. We are talking about COVID bargains. Don't buy that horrific piece of shit, please.
Are we going to put this? So we'll put this up on the Instagram, but we probably want to like take away who's selling it because we don't want people to abuse this person.
Well, they fully deserve it, but no, you're right. We will not. We'll keep those details hidden. But oh my god, I mean, you're going to identify them if you see them on the water in this unique craft. I mean, I've done some turds that float in the bowl that are more seaworthy than this. Oh, a 9.9. At least put a decent outboard on it.
Well, the problem is they put a decent motor on it. I can't say that. The thing will say.
Oh, jeez.
So anyway, that's the turd of the day.
That's the turd of the day, right?
Yeah, man. Anyway, it's bloody well past my curfew.
Yeah, it is. We better rumble. But once again, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you're enjoying the series here. We are on Spotify. We're thinking about going down to Apple Podcasts as well as soon as I figure that out. Please reach out to us at Unable Semen, obviously into that competition we spoke of earlier, but also just give us feedback. Okay? We're not perfect. We're just two guys talking about boats and fishing. We are going to try up the fishing content a little bit more, but please just get in contact. Let us know what you think, what you'd like to hear. We've got plenty of ideas, but just because we thought of them doesn't necessarily mean they're good. I think
we can talk about anything, but we just probably might not know much about it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We just make it up as we go.
Yeah,
I think that's it for this month. We will endeavour to be back with episode 3 in a month. Hopefully by then we're through the darkest of the winter and we can start doing some weekend missions, I hope.
And I'll be back out on my boat.
Yep. So
the latest one, because obviously we don't have Redicat anymore. We got Mrs. Korma.
I've got Mrs. Korma.
19. We'll talk about that one.
We'll talk about it another day. But I mean, if I were you, I mean, my safety advice to you would be Lee Hart Special Workers. Put in a mayday as you leave the dock, and you can always cancel it later. So that'll be mine.
Oh wait. Anyway, I'm taking it out.
Once again, thanks for listening, and we will see you in a month. Righto, bro. See you later.
Ka kite.
Cheers, mate. Bye.